Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! The steady rhythm of high heels reverberated through the expansive office, a marching band signifying the start of another workday. A calculated moment of silence fell upon the strategy department as their curious gazes trailed the passing parade of the administrative team.
Such a breeze, their jobs,
Amiri commented, his eyes fixated on the dancing numbers of his spreadsheet, the tap of his keyboard never ceasing.
Stroll in late, lunch for half the day, then disappear exactly when the clock strikes 5.
Across the aisle, Damon's skeptic gaze met his.
Still on about this?
Undeterred, Amiri stretched, leaning back in the embrace of his ergonomic chair.
I'm just stating the obvious. Compared to us, their days are a stroll in the park. They answer phones, schedule meetings, and everyone treats them like they're doing rocket science. Keep your voice down,
Damon warned, glancing toward the hall where the administrative team had disappeared.
Sheila's got ears like a bat.
Let her hear me! Amiri shrugged, turning back to his monitor.
I've been here until midnight 3 times this week, wrestling with the Henderson account projections. Meanwhile, they're posting vacation photos from their weekend getaways.
Damon's eyes widened, looking at something beyond Amiri's shoulder.
Too late.
Mr. Kazan, a crisp female voice cut through the air. A word in my office, please. Amiri swiveled around to find Sheila Montgomery, Director of Operations, standing behind him in a perfectly tailored charcoal pantsuit. Her silver-streaked black hair was pulled into a severe bun, glasses perched on the edge of her nose.
Of course,
Amiri replied, quickly standing and reaching for his jacket.
Is this about the Henderson numbers? Because I've almost...
Now, Mr. Kazan. She turned on her heel and walked toward her glass-walled office. Amiri shot Damon a questioning look, but his colleague merely mimed slitting his throat before returning to his work. Inside Sheila's immaculate office, Amiri took a seat across from her desk, mentally running through his recent projects for any potential issues.
Do you know how long I've been with this company, Mr. Kazan?
Sheila removed her glasses, setting them precisely on her desk.
15 years?
He guessed.
23. I started as a receptionist when we occupied half a floor in a building across town.
She leaned forward. I've heard your comments about our administrative staff. It's not the first time. Amiri felt heat rising in his face.
I may have been a bit harsh.
You've been consistently dismissive of a department that keeps this company functioning. Her voice remained even, which somehow made it worse.
Particularly troubling given that you regularly miss deadlines on your report submissions and expense filings, tasks our administrative team handles for the entire company without complaint. With all due respect,
Amiri countered.
Running numbers for million-dollar accounts isn't exactly comparable to managing calendars.
Something dangerous flashed in Sheila's eyes. Are you familiar with the concept of walking in someone else's shoes, Mr. Kazan?
I don't see how.
I'm offering you a choice. She folded her hands on the desk. Either accept a formal reprimand for creating a hostile work environment, which will go in your permanent file and affect your upcoming performance review, or... She paused. Accept a temporary reassignment. Amiri frowned.
What kind of reassignment?
1 month as an executive assistant in our administrative pool. A laugh escaped before he could stop it.
You're joking.
I never joke about operational matters. Her expression remained stony. 1 month. If after that time you still believe the role is as simple as you claim, You can return to your current position with no reprimand. If you fail to complete the month or admit the job requires more skill than you anticipated, you'll tender your resignation."
"That's ridiculous," Amiri protested. "You can't force me to resign over this."
"I'm not forcing anything. I'm offering an alternative to formal disciplinary action." She picked up her glasses. "Oh, and one more condition."
"There's more?" "Since you seem to have such strong opinions about our predominantly female administrative staff, you'll need to present as female for the duration of the assignment."
Amiri stared at her, certain he'd misheard.
"Excuse me?" "Full presentation as a woman. Dress, makeup, appropriate footwear. If you're going to truly understand their experience, you should experience all aspects of it."
That's insane!"
Amiri stood up. "And probably illegal. I could file a complaint."
"Feel free," Sheila replied calmly. "Though the company's anti-discrimination policy might make interesting reading first, we don't discriminate based on gender expression. You're not being asked to do anything our female staff aren't already doing. This is coercion. This is education."
"Your choice, Mr. Kazan. Reprimand in your file, or 1 month as Elizabeth."
"Elizabeth? We can't very well have 2 Amiris, can we? Elizabeth seems appropriate for someone of your
professional stature."
Amiri stood in stunned silence. The smug certainty in Sheila's eyes ignited something in him. The same competitive fire that had propelled him through business school and up the corporate ladder.
"Fine," he said finally. 1 month, and when I breeze through it, I expect an apology and a promotion."
"Agreed." Sheila extended her hand. "You start Monday. Report to HR at 8 for orientation and to complete your temporary paperwork. Human Resources will also provide resources for your transition." Amiri shook her hand firmly.
"I hope you're ready to eat your words, Ms. Montgomery."
"Likewise, Mr. Kazan.
Or should I say, Ms. Elizabeth."
The weekend passed in a blur of reluctant preparation. The HR packet Sheila had sent home with him included contact information for a personal shopper at Nordstrom who specialized in clients with specific needs, as well as a makeup artist who offered private lessons. Both were apparently on the company's retainer for various corporate image consultations. Amiri had almost backed out a dozen times, but each time he remembered Sheila's condescending smile, he recommitted to proving her wrong. By Sunday evening, he had assembled what the personal shopper assured him was an appropriate week's worth of business attire for a female executive assistant. Standing before his bedroom mirror on Monday morning, Amiri barely recognized himself. The burgundy sheath dress fit surprisingly well, thanks to the shapewear underneath that smoothed his masculine frame into something more feminine. Black tights covered his freshly shaved legs, and low black pumps completed the outfit. The makeup artist had spent 3 hours with him on Saturday, teaching him how to contour his jawline and apply mascara without poking his eye out. The blonde wig was the most convincing element, an expensive human hairpiece that the stylist had cut into a shoulder-length bob. As he turned to see himself from different angles, Amiri had to admit the transformation was remarkably effective.
1 month, he told his reflection. Just survive 1 month.
The office parking garage had never seemed so vast. Each step in the unfamiliar shoes felt precarious, and Amiri found himself clutching his new handbag with white knuckles. He'd arrived early to avoid running into colleagues from his department, slipping into HR right as the office opened. Patricia from Human Resources did a double take when he entered. "Oh, you must be... Elizabeth?" "That's right." Amiri had practiced a softer, slightly higher voice all weekend. "Well," Patricia said, recovering quickly, Sheila mentioned you'd be joining us under unusual circumstances. Your temporary workstation is ready in the administrative pool. Let me show you around. The tour was brief but informative. Amiri learned that the administrative staff arrived an hour before most departments to prepare for the day, which explained why the secretaries always appeared to be casually chatting when he arrived at 9. They also stayed 30 minutes after their departments left to file the day's paperwork and prepare for tomorrow. You'll be supporting the legal team for the month, Patricia explained as they approached a desk near the center of the administrative area. Their regular assistant is on maternity leave, and her temporary replacement just quit. Perfect timing, actually. The legal team? Amiri felt a twinge of anxiety. That's 6 senior attorneys. 7 now with the new hire. They're a demanding bunch, but I'm sure you'll manage. Patricia's smile didn't reach her eyes. Your login credentials are here, and this binder contains the protocols for document handling, call routing, and calendar management. Any questions? Before Amiri could respond, a trim woman in her 50s approached, hand extended. You must be Elizabeth. I'm Maureen, head of the administrative team. Welcome aboard. Her handshake was firm and professional. We understand you're here on a special assignment. Don't worry, we take care of our own. Any questions? Start with me. Thank you, Amiri replied, surprised by the genuine warmth in her welcome. The legal team starts arriving at 8:30. They'll each have requests for you right away, so I suggest familiarizing yourself with their names and preferences immediately. Maureen handed him a typed sheet. Coffee orders, lunch preferences, and personality notes. Trust me, it helps. As Maureen walked away, Amiri glanced down at the list. Next to each attorney's name were detailed notes. Richard Brennan, managing partner. Black coffee, no sugar. Never call before 9:30 unless emergency. Likes briefs printed single-sided. Meredith Chen, partner. Green tea with honey, vegetarian. Prefers email to calls. Color code her calendar appointments by client. The list continued with similarly detailed information for each attorney. Amiri felt the first flicker of doubt about his confidence in handling this job. By 9:15, Amiri was sweating through his shapewear. 3 attorneys had already barked conflicting demands at him. The phone wouldn't stop ringing, and he'd spent 15 minutes trying to figure out how to transfer a call to voicemail.
Elizabeth, did you book that conference room for my deposition?
Richard Brennan appeared at his desk, frowning at his watch.
I'm working on it now,
Amiri replied, frantically clicking through the room reservation system.
Working on it?
Richard's eyebrows shot up.
The clients will be here in 45 minutes. The room should have been booked last week.
I just started today.
That's not my concern. Figure it out.
Richard stalked away, leaving Amiri staring at the screen in panic. A hand reached past him and clicked several buttons.
There. Southwest Corner Conference Room is booked for the next 3 hours under Brennan's name.
The owner of the hand was a woman with curly red hair at the neighboring desk.
I'm Deborah. You looked like you needed saving.
Thanks, Amiri breathed.
This system is nothing like what we use in strategy.
Deborah's eyes narrowed slightly. Strategy? Oh, you're that guy. What guy? The one who thinks our jobs are a cakewalk. She smiled thinly. How's that working out for you so far? Before Amiri could respond, his phone rang again. As he fumbled with the receiver, Deborah leaned over. Just so you know, the attorneys time their request to hit all at once around 9. They think it's funny to watch new assistants scramble. She turned back to her own ringing phone. Good luck, Elizabeth. By lunchtime, Amiri had made 6 mistakes that he knew of, including sending Richard Brennan's confidential brief to the entire legal department and ordering Meredith Chen a chicken sandwich despite the clear note about her being vegetarian. His feet were screaming in the unaccustomed heels, and he'd already chipped a nail trying to unjam the copier. He collapsed into his chair, considering whether he should just admit defeat now and save himself 3 more weeks of torture. Rough morning? Maureen appeared beside his desk, offering a bottle of water.
I don't understand how anyone does this job, Amiri admitted, accepting the water gratefully. Everything happens simultaneously. That's the job. Maureen nodded. Multitasking while making it look effortless, plus absorbing other people's stress without reflecting it back. She glanced at his outfit. You might want to consider lower heels tomorrow. The first week is always the hardest on the feet. Amiri nodded, taking a sip of water. I didn't realize how much the administrative team handles. Most people don't. Maureen's smile was knowing. 15-minute break, then back at it. Attorneys return from lunch at 1, and they'll all need their afternoon files prepared. The afternoon brought new challenges. Amiri discovered that preparing files meant not just organizing papers, but anticipating which documents each attorney would need for their afternoon meetings. Information that wasn't written down anywhere, but was apparently just expected knowledge. As he scrambled to assemble materials he barely understood, he noticed the other assistants moving with practiced efficiency, anticipating requests before they were made and solving problems that hadn't yet been verbalized. When Richard Brennan appeared at his desk at 3:30, looking for a specific precedent case that Amiri had never heard of, let alone prepared, Deborah once again intervened. I pulled it for him this morning when I saw it on his calendar, she explained after Brennan left with the file. We look out for each other here. You'll get the hang of it. By 5 o'clock, Amiri was exhausted in ways he'd never experienced from his strategy job. His back ached from the unfamiliar posture required by the dress and heels. His face felt stiff from maintaining a pleasant expression through increasingly stressful interactions. And his brain was overwhelmed from tracking dozens of simultaneous tasks while navigating systems he'd never used before. As he packed up his bag, he noticed the other assistants weren't leaving. End of day reports, Deborah explained, nodding to her computer. We document all completed tasks and prepare preliminary schedules for tomorrow. Usually takes about 30 minutes. Amiri sank back into his chair with a sigh and opened the template Deborah sent over. The form was detailed, requiring him to account for every task, phone call, and document processed during the day.
This is more thorough than my quarterly performance reviews, he muttered.
Accountability! Maureen called from across the room. Everything that happens in this company passes through administrative hands.
We document it all.
By the time Amiri finally left the building, it was nearly 6. He hobbled to his car, shoes in hand, bare feet padding across the cold concrete of the parking garage. The second day brought new challenges. Amiri, now firmly in the mindset of Elizabeth during work hours, arrived earlier and wore more sensible shoes, but found himself caught in a political crossfire between 2 partners with competing priorities. No one had warned him that Meredith and Richard were barely on speaking terms, using their assistants as intermediaries in their power struggles. Tell Richard his client's proposal conflicts with the Morrison timeline, Meredith instructed, dropping a folder on Elizabeth's desk. 20 minutes later, Richard appeared. Inform Meredith that my client takes priority per the managing director's guidance. He pushed the same folder back across the desk. After the third exchange, Elizabeth sought Maureen's advice. Document everything, the older woman advised. Forward their emails to each other with a polite, sharing for visibility note. They know exactly what they're doing. making us the messengers so they don't have to confront each other directly. How is that fair? Elizabeth asked. It's not about fair. It's about function. Maureen shrugged. We're the oil in the machine. Without us, the gears grind together and everything breaks down. By Wednesday, Elizabeth had developed a system. She arrived at 7:30, reviewed all calendars and pending tasks, and prepared a prioritized checklist before any attorneys arrived. She'd learned to anticipate common requests and keep relevant files readily accessible. The phone system had become less mysterious, and she'd even mastered the temperamental copier. What he hadn't anticipated was the personal dynamics. Male colleagues he'd known for years now treated him completely differently. The IT specialist who had always been brusque and technical during their previous interactions now lingered at Elizabeth's desk, explaining computer issues with painstaking thoroughness while standing just a little too close. Even more uncomfortable was lunch in the break room. Seated with the other administrative staff, Elizabeth became aware of the evaluating glances from male employees at nearby tables, the subtle changes in conversation when certain executives entered the room. Just ignore Reynolds, Deborah advised, noticing Elizabeth's discomfort when the sales director's gaze lingered too long. He's harmless but clueless. 4 sexual harassment seminars, and he still thinks he's God's gift. Does he always stare like that? Elizabeth asked quietly. At anything in a dress under 50, Deborah confirmed. We have a system. If he corners you by the coffee machine, someone will call your desk within 30 seconds. That's efficient. That's survival, Maureen corrected from across the table. Though he's been better since his last warning. Just maintain professional boundaries, and you'll be fine. Thursday brought a company-wide crisis when the server crashed, taking down the email system and document access for 3 hours. Elizabeth watched in amazement as the administrative team mobilized, implementing backup communications protocols she hadn't known existed. Cell phone lists appeared, runners were dispatched between departments with handwritten updates, and critical meetings continued with hastily assembled physical materials. We prepare for this, Deborah explained as they collated documents for an emergency client meeting. First Thursday each quarter, we update the emergency protocols. Didn't you ever wonder why all the assistants stayed late on the same day? I never noticed, Elizabeth admitted. Of course not. Deborah's smile held no malice, just understanding. No one notices systems until they fail. By Friday, Elizabeth had settled into an uneasy rhythm. The blonde wig felt less strange on his head. The makeup routine had become almost automatic, and he'd discovered a newfound respect for well-designed women's business wear. The burgundy dress from Monday had been replaced by a navy pencil skirt and cream blouse, with a matching navy blazer that helped disguise his broader shoulders. As the week wrapped up, Elizabeth found herself included in the administrative team's traditional Friday afternoon check-in, a 15-minute huddle where successes were celebrated and lessons shared. Elizabeth rescued the Johnson filing when the system crashed, Maureen announced. Quick thinking to retrieve the backup from the cloud storage. Murmurs of appreciation rippled through the group, and for the first time since this experiment began, Amiri felt a genuine sense of accomplishment, not for closing a multi-million-dollar deal or delivering a perfect strategy presentation, but for keeping the basic functions of the company running during a crisis. The weekend brought blessed relief from the constant performance. Amiri shed Elizabeth's identity like a second skin, spending Saturday in sweatpants and a t-shirt, nursing sore feet and processing the whirlwind first week. On Sunday evening, as he prepared for week 2, reorganizing Elizabeth's closet with the outfits neatly arranged by day, Amiri realized something had shifted. He was no longer approaching this challenge as merely a way to prove Sheila wrong. He was actually curious about mastering the role, about proving to himself and the administrative team that he could excel in this position they navigated with such skill. The blonde wig sat on its stand on his dresser, no longer an alien object but simply part of his work equipment. He ran his fingers through the silky strands, adjusting it slightly before trying it on, checking that it sat naturally. Week 2 began with new confidence. Elizabeth arrived with a system in place and a deeper understanding of the legal team's dynamics. She'd memorized their preferences and anticipated their needs, earning grudging approval from even the most demanding partners.
These briefs are organized perfectly,
Richard commented on Tuesday, actually pausing at her desk instead of swooping in and out like a tornado.
You're catching on quickly.
Thank you, sir. Elizabeth smiled, the expression now coming naturally. I also pulled the Jenkins precedent cases you'll need this afternoon. Richard raised an eyebrow, impressed.
Good initiative. Keep it up.
As he walked away, Deborah gave Elizabeth a thumbs up from across the aisle. The small victory felt surprisingly significant. By the middle of the second week, Elizabeth had been fully accepted into the administrative team's inner circle. She'd been invited to their monthly book club, received the unofficial org chart showing which executives were actually in charge versus who held ceremonial power, and been trusted with the password to the supply cabinet where the good pens were kept. The physical aspects of presenting as female had become second nature. Elizabeth no longer wobbled in her heels, had mastered the art of sitting gracefully in a skirt, and could apply her makeup in 20 minutes flat. The blonde bob had become so familiar that Amiri sometimes caught himself reaching up to tuck non-existent hair behind his ear when at home in his male identity. More surprising were the social dynamics. Elizabeth was included in conversations from which Amiri had always been excluded. Female colleagues shared concerns about workplace dynamics, family challenges, and career obstacles with a candor he'd never experienced as a man. He found himself nodding along, offering genuine sympathy rather than solutions, a communication pattern he'd observed among the women but never fully understood before. The third week brought an unexpected challenge when several executives from the Tokyo office arrived for quarterly reviews. Elizabeth was assigned to support their visit, coordinating complex schedules across language barriers and time zone confusion. They requested you, specifically, Maureen informed her with a knowing smile. Apparently, Richard told them you were the most efficient new assistant he's worked with in years. He said that? Elizabeth couldn't hide her surprise. Don't let it go to your head. High praise from Richard is like getting a participation trophy from anyone else. Maureen handed her a folder. Here's their itinerary. The delegation lead, Mr. Tanaka, has very specific preferences. Study these before they arrive tomorrow. The international delegation tested Elizabeth's newly developed skills to their limits. Coordinating transportation, managing cultural expectations around meeting protocols, and ensuring flawless hospitality while continuing to support the legal team's regular work created 18-hour days that left her exhausted. Yet somehow, she managed. When Mr. Tanaka requested last-minute changes to the presentation schedule, Elizabeth reorganized the entire day within 30 minutes, notifying all participants and updating materials without dropping any of her regular responsibilities. Impressive work, Sheila commented, appearing beside Elizabeth's desk after the delegation departed on Thursday afternoon. Mr. Tanaka specifically mentioned the seamless administrative support. Thank you, Elizabeth responded, too tired for their usual antagonism. It was challenging, but instructive. Sheila studied her for a moment.
You've surprised me, I'll admit. When you accepted this challenge, I expected you to quit within days.
I considered it, Elizabeth confessed. That first week was eye-opening. 9 days left, Sheila reminded her, Still confident this is the easiest gig in the building? Elizabeth looked up from her desk, where 3 phone lines were blinking. Her email was pinging with urgent requests, and a stack of contracts awaited processing before end of day. I was wrong, she admitted. About a lot of things. A satisfied smile crossed Sheila's face. Growth mindset, good. She turned to leave, then paused. The burgundy dress from your first day. It suits you better than I expected. You might consider similar tones for your coloring. The compliment, unexpected and oddly specific, left Elizabeth momentarily speechless. By the time she thought to respond, Sheila had already walked away. The final week brought a strange melancholy. Elizabeth had developed genuine friendships with the administrative team, particularly Deborah and Maureen. She'd mastered systems that had initially seemed impenetrable. Most surprisingly, she'd discovered she had a talent for this work, for the multitasking, the interpersonal navigation, and the behind-the-scenes orchestration that kept the company functioning. On her last Friday, the administrative team surprised her with a small gathering in the break room, cupcakes and coffee, and heartfelt cards thanking her for her work. We know you're going back to strategy on Monday, Maureen said. But you've earned your place here. Not many could have adapted so completely or performed so well. Especially considering, Deborah added with a meaningful glance at Elizabeth's outfit, a burgundy pencil skirt with a matching blazer over a cream silk blouse. You not only did the job, but embraced the whole experience. That takes courage. Elizabeth felt unexpected emotion tightening her throat. Thank you all for your patience and support. This month has been transformative. Later that afternoon, as she packed up her desk, Richard Brennan stopped by with an unusual request. Elizabeth, I understand you're returning to your previous position next week. Yes, sir. Today is my last day in administrative.
A shame.
You've been exceptional. He seemed genuinely disappointed. I was wondering if you might consider continuing to assist with certain specialized projects. Your organizational skills with the Tokyo delegation were outstanding. We have the Shanghai team visiting next quarter. I'm not sure what my schedule will allow, Elizabeth stammered, surprised by the request. Think about it. Richard handed her his card. We could arrange a consulting basis if your regular position permits. The company needs employees who can function effectively across departments. Throughout the day, similar conversations occurred. Attorneys who had barely acknowledged her existence 3 weeks ago now expressed genuine regret at her departure. Even Mr. Reynolds from sales, while still inappropriate in his attention, had developed a grudging professional respect for her efficiency. At 5 o'clock, Elizabeth completed her final end-of-day report. As the administrative team prepared to leave, they each stopped by her desk for goodbyes that felt unexpectedly emotional. Don't be a stranger, Deborah insisted, giving her a quick hug. You've seen how the sausage gets made now. You're part of the secret society. Maureen's farewell was more formal but equally warm. You did good work here, Elizabeth. Remember that when you're back in strategy. After they left, Elizabeth sat alone at her desk, reluctant to leave. She ran her fingers over the smooth surface where countless crises had been managed over the past month. With a deep breath, she stood, smoothed her skirt, and walked toward Sheila's office for their final meeting. Sheila was waiting, glasses perched on her nose as she reviewed documents. She gestured to the chair across from her desk without looking up. So, she said finally, removing her glasses. 1 month completed. What's your assessment, Ms. Elizabeth? I was wrong, Elizabeth stated simply. The administrative team performs some of the most complex and undervalued work in this company. They manage information flows, interpersonal dynamics, and organizational systems with skill that deserves far more recognition than they receive. Sheila nodded, satisfaction evident in her expression. And the presentation aspect? Was that as simple as you expected? Elizabeth touched her blonde hair, now as familiar as her own skin. That was educational in ways I hadn't anticipated. The different treatment, the assumptions, the constant awareness of appearance while trying to be taken seriously. It's exhausting. Yet, you adapted admirably, Sheila observed. Better than I expected, if I'm being honest. You didn't just survive the role. You excelled at it. Thank you. So what happens Monday? Amiri returns to strategy. Lesson learned? Elizabeth hesitated. Yes, though. I've been asked to consult on certain projects with the legal team. Interesting. They must have been impressed. Sheila leaned back in her chair. And Elizabeth? Does she disappear completely? The question hit deeper than expected. Elizabeth looked down at her manicured hands, considering. I don't think she can, she admitted quietly. This experience has become part of me in ways I'm still processing. Understandable. Sheila stood, extending her hand. You fulfilled our agreement with integrity. I look forward to seeing how this experience influences your work moving forward. Elizabeth shook her hand, feeling the symbolic end of her assignment. Thank you for the opportunity, however unorthodox. Sometimes unorthodox methods yield the most profound growth. Sheila smiled. Have a good weekend, Elizabeth. Or should I say, Amiri? The name felt strange suddenly, like clothing that no longer quite fit. Elizabeth is fine, she replied. At least until Monday. The weekend passed in quiet reflection. Amiri cleaned his apartment, did laundry, and carefully packed away Elizabeth's clothing in a spare closet. The blonde wig remained on its stand, catching the light from his bedroom window. On Sunday evening, he stood before his closet, staring at the row of men's suits he hadn't worn in a month. His hand reached for a charcoal gray option, then hesitated, fingers trailing across the fabric. After a moment's consideration, he closed the closet and walked to the spare room where Elizabeth's wardrobe waited. The burgundy dress from his first day hung at the front, a symbol of his initial fear and subsequent transformation. Amiri ran his fingers down the fabric, remembering Sheila's comment about the color suiting him. Without fully analyzing his decision, he removed the dress from its hanger and laid it on the bed, alongside the blonde wig and the makeup kit he'd become surprisingly adept at using. Monday morning arrived with a sense of possibility. The strategy department welcomed Amiri back with curious glances and tentative questions about his special assignment, which he answered vaguely but politely. His navy suit felt constricting after a month in more fluid clothing, his flat shoes almost disorienting in their stability. At lunchtime, he made a point of stopping by the administrative area. Deborah grinned when she saw him. Well, look who's back in the land of the living, she teased. How's it feel to return to your easy strategy job? Strangely disconnected, Amiri admitted. I spent all morning wondering who was handling the Torres filing before remembering it's not my responsibility anymore. That's how they get you, Maureen commented, joining them. Administrative work becomes second nature. You'll transition back soon enough. Amiri nodded, then cleared his throat.
I wanted to apologize formally to all of you. My comments about your work were ignorant and disrespectful. You are the backbone of this company, and I didn't appreciate that until I walked in your shoes.
Literally. The women exchanged glances, and Deborah smiled. Apology accepted. You paid your dues. And you didn't do half bad, Maureen added. For what it's worth. As the weeks passed, Amiri settled back into his strategy role, but with a new perspective that influenced his approach to interdepartmental projects. In a corporate world where stereotypes often went unchallenged, Amiri had embarked on a journey that transcended traditional boundaries. His experience, initially born from a laughable dare, had evolved into a profound understanding of self and an appreciation for the complexities of identity. Elizabeth, the persona he had crafted with such care, was not just a hidden figure from his past, but a testament to the many facets of his personality. The process of becoming her was no longer a secret ritual, but a celebration of self-acceptance. He didn't need to travel to distant lands or seek counsel from mystics to discover his truth. It resided within him, the product of his unique experiences and his capacity to embrace them. As he stepped out into the Friday night air, confident and radiant, Amiri knew that the divisions between work and play, between Amiri and Elizabeth, were not walls to separate, but doorways to a more fulfilling life. In a world where the ordinary is often celebrated, Amiri had found the extraordinary within himself, a discovery that would forever influence his actions and decisions. The end of one transformation marked the beginning of a more significant evolution, where Amiri's true strength lay in his ability to embody different aspects of his character, transitioning between them with grace and purpose.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!